Welcome to the class. Today we are going to talk about adverbs. Adverbs are specific constituent in a sentence. So a discussion of adverbs becomes crucial when we discuss language at the level of sentence. So in order to make our language more impressive and in order to understand language properly, for the purpose of making it more impressive, we need to understand adverbial functions in little bit more details. Once we understand the nature and function of this specific type of constituent in a sentence, then the impact of this in their uses and for us in our speech is going to be optimal. That helps us improve our language. That helps us sound better. That helps us get in control of what we speak and what we want to say. Hence, it's an important component of sentence and good to it is important for us to know the details of it. Let's go ahead and understand the details, and then it gives you an understanding of what it does in a sentence. For that, let's look at sentence. What is a sentence? Primarily speaking, a sentence is a combination of a subject and a predicate. We understand that every sentence must have one subject. It's a grammatical requirement for accuracy of a sentence, for the grammaticality of a sentence, that it contains a subject in it. And when we say subject and predicate, we also know that subjects are out of predicate, that is, outside the domain of the predicate. Thus, we need to know what is part of a predicate. What does a predicate contain? Predicates have everything else other than subjects within it. All other different elements may have different functions, different elements may have different associations, but to understand predicate in totality, we need to know that everything other than subject in a sentence is part of predicate. However, when we say predicate, we mean verbs. Sometimes we use these two terms, verbs and predicates, interchangeably. And there is a reason for that. The reason is every element of predicate is associated with verb. It has to do with verb. Then we need to understand the details of predicate properly. And this is very simple to know once you pay attention to that. And then a sentence is totally clear in your mind without any confusion. There are several other parts of sentence like tense and agreement, which we understand a bit, and we are also we will look at those elements separately, but at this point we only need to talk about predicates, and they are, so what are the elements within a predicate? A verb, definitely a verb, and their objects. So the presence or absence of an object depends on the nature of the verb. So, and we know about that part as well a bit, and that's all about it that we need to know, which is if a verb is transitive in nature, then it requires an object, sometimes one, sometimes two, whereas if a verb is an intransitive one, then it won't need any object. However, the presence or absence of adjuncts or adverbs is not contingent upon the transitive or intransitive nature of verbs. This is a crucial part for us to know. Therefore, I'll repeat one more time. We use the word predicate interchangeably with verbs. It's okay in some sense, because when we say predicate, we mean everything else other than subject in the sentence. And when we say verb, we mean that every part of predicate is associated with verb, in the sense that if a predicate has an object, that depends on the transitive nature of the verb. If it doesn't have one, that is due to the intransitive nature of the verb. However, whether or not a predicate has an adverb in it is not contingent upon the nature of verb. That is, it doesn't depend on transitivity or intransitivity. So, this is where we meet with adverbs for the first time in the sentence. So, that right here we get to know that adverbs are not closely associated with verbs. The nature of verb will not determine the presence or absence of adverbs. However, if they are present, they are associated with the verb, in the sense that they are going to be describing a verb, they are going to be modifying a verb. There is a difference between description and modification. We'll come back to that part. But adverbs will modify verbs. Keep in mind, other than objects within a predicate, the second thing that we are talking about is adverb. So, adverbs have something to do with the verb in a direct sense. Because these are not contingent upon the nature of adverbs, that is, presence or absence of adverb is not contingent upon the nature of verb. So, adverbs are technically, structurally called adjuncts as well. I'm just using another term so that if you meet with this term somewhere, you get to know what it is. Adverbs is the name of the category, and adjunct refers to its structural relation with the other elements. So, adjuncts are not part of the verb. And it has more meaning, but that's all we need to know for the time being. So let's look at some examples to elaborate what I have just described to you. So we have a sentence like a canonical sentence out of the context is Raju loves pizza. The purpose of this example is to explain the notion of subject and predicate within the verb for you. So look at this. This is a sentence. Then Raju is the subject of this sentence, and loves pizza is the predicate of the sentence, in which love is a transitive verb, because we can question it with what loves what. The answer is pizza. Loves pizza. So whatever is the answer of this question, what is the object of the verb. So love being a transitive verb, it requires an object, and in this case, pizza as a noun is the object of this transitive verb, and that completes this sentence. Let's look at another one. Raju goes to the market every day. If we apply our understanding of a sentence, Raju is the subject of the sentence. Rest of it is predicate. Within the predicate, we see go is the verb. Can we question it with what goes what? No. This doesn't sound like a good question. Hence, this does not need an object. So this is an intransitive verb. This doesn't need one. This doesn't need an object. So there is no object in this sentence. Then the question is, what is this? To the market. And what is this? Every day. What is the status of these two elements in this whole thing called predicate? It's an now look at it. What is this to the market answer? What kind of question can it answer? It indicates a location. So if we ask the question goes where, then it appears to be one of the plausible answers to this question. So this is kind of an adjunct or an adverb in the sentence. Every day is talking about frequency. So both of them are adverbs. And I underline them one more time for you. Both of them are adverbs. One is talking about the location of going, the other is talking about the frequency of going. But both of them are adverbs and both of them have to add something to the verb. So when an element adds some sort of information about the verb in a sentence, that is called adjuncts, that is also called adverbs, and they are called modifiers. Modifiers in the sense that they give you more information about the verb. Here we have two adverbs. One is talking about location, the other is talking about frequency. It is not the case that one modifies the other. Rather, both of them are modifying the verb. An additional note here, an additional piece of information here, and I have purposely picked this example which has a verb go. Go is a special type of intransitive verb where it is an intransitive verb, and we know that intransitive verbs do not need an object, but we must have some locational information with this verb. So we can say a verb like go kind of requires an adjunct because we need to specify the location of going. It is different from a verb like sleep. A verb like sleep is an intransitive verb, but a verb like sleep does not necessarily force you to have a location or time or frequency information in the sentence. But a verb like go kind of obligatorily requires this locational information. So we always notice such sentences like we have to say, I go home. I cannot simply say I go. I have to specify the location. I go home. I go home every weekend. I go home. I go to the library every other week. I go to the market every day. So everyday frequency is not as important as the location in the context of the verb go. So that's just an additional piece of note about the verb go. Now, when we look at the third sentence here, it's a different type of sentence. Raju teaches school kids English in the evening. Now, look at this. This is also a predicate. Raju is the subject of this sentence. Teach is the verb. Teach is a different kind of transitive verb. It's also a transitive verb, but it is different because it requires two objects. So sometimes it is also called ditransitive verb. What are the two objects? School kids, one, and English, two. So whenever we have two objects, we identify one as direct object and the other as indirect object. Very simple to know. So very simple to find out what is an indirect object, what is a direct object. Keep in mind, whenever you have a verb which requires two objects, one of them is going to be indirect object, and the so here is an identifying marker of an object. Answer the question what teaches what. Which part is answering this question? Teaches English. So the part that answers what question is a direct object, and the other adverb is indirect object. Okay, so the part that answers what is direct object. Everywhere the element that answers the question what is direct object, but when we have only one object, then we don't need to specify it as direct object, we just call it an object. But when we have two, it becomes direct object and the other one is an indirect object. In the evening is giving you time information in the sense of when. So this is an adverb. If you want to see this in terms of a phrase, look at this. It's a prepositional phrase in English because there is a preposition which is right in front of a noun phrase, but the function of this entire phrase is to tell us about the time of teaching. So this, in a very direct way, is giving us information about time of teaching. Hence, it's a modifier of a verb and hence an adjunct or an adverb. So these couple of examples would give you an idea about the different components of a sentence. Once we keep this thing in mind, these things in mind, then we are going to understand the components quite accurately and with lot of clarity. So when you here is a piece of exercise that you can do for yourself. Whenever you use a sentence, and if you can allow yourself to pause, that is for the purpose of exercise, not when we speak. Pause for a moment and check the function or purpose of different elements in a sentence. So like I have given 3 examples, I want you to come up with 5 to 10 sentences for yourself and then see different elements in a sentence. See if you find a sentence which doesn't have a subject. See what kind of predicates you have, what is the nature of verbs in your predicates, and then what are the elements that are adverbial in nature and what are the elements that are objects of those verbs. This will be a nice exercise for you to allow yourself understand these details, and after that exercise, when you write or read or speak, you are going to have a lot of subconscious clarity for better communicative confidence. So let's now look at some more examples of adverbs in a sentence. So you understand this sentence, Raju loves pizza, is a canonical, simple sentence. Now, Raju eats, every day Raju eats thin pizza in the evening. And this is what I was trying to tell you, to do that for yourself. So look at this. What is this? What is a sentence? The whole thing is a sentence, of course. What is the subject of the sentence? This is Raju. What is the predicate of the sentence? This whole thing is the predicate. What is the verb in this predicate? Eats. Is it a transitive verb or an intransitive verb? Transitive verb, because we can ask a question, what for this verb? Eats what? The answer that we get is thin pizza. This part is the object of this verb. And in the evening, again, is a prepositional phrase which is giving you time information, which happens to be an adverb. Now, two more things in this sentence requires our attention. When we say thin pizza, this whole thing is the object of this verb eat. But keep in mind and have a look at the function of this thin. This is an adjective, and this is modifying this noun pizza. Modifying meaning, this element gives us information about the pizza, not anything else in the sentence. Hence, it's a nominal modifier and it is called an adjective. It is kind of a clear rule that adjectives will only modify nominal elements and adverbs will modify verbal elements or the entire sentence. That is the predicate. So every day is talking about, again, frequency of what? Every day. Now think about it. It is in the beginning of a sentence. But what does, if it talks about frequency, it talks about frequency of what? It talks about frequency of Raju eating pizza every day. Raju eating pizza in the evening. So we can say this modifies the whole sentence, but within the sentence, it very specifically gives us the frequency of eating. Therefore, again, irrespective of its position in a sentence, it is sort of modifying the nucleus of the sentence, that is a verb. And we can also say because of its location within the sentence, we can say this adverb modifies the whole sentence. That's fine. But within the whole sentence also, if you need to locate the nucleus, that is going to be the verb because it is giving us information about eating. That is frequency of eating. Now look at it. Next sentence. Raju eats cheese pizza regularly in the evening. Now, here we have a whole sentence. Subject. This is the whole predicate. Eats verb. Cheese pizza object. Regularly one adverb. In the evening another adverb. Keep in mind, adverbs are not just one words. Prepositional phrases in a sentence which has adverbial functions are also called adverbs. So, in the evening is giving us information about time, and regularly is again giving us information about frequency, and both of them are related to eating. So, they are both adverbs of this verb, modifying the verb. We can go into the details and we can say, and this becomes apparent here if you look at different parts of a sentence with clarity. You can see, or you can extend your argument, you can extend your understanding that when we say regularly, it's not just about eating. More specifically, what is happening regularly? Eating cheese pizza. So, the object of the verb is part of the verb. So now it becomes a verb phrase. So, adverbs modify verb phrases, not just the verbal element alone. One more time. When we talk about frequency of eating what? Eating cheese pizza is a verb phrase, and we can say that adverbs modify not just the verbal element, but they also modify the entire verb phrase. So then we say eating regularly, eating pizza. And then we say regularly eating pizza in the evening. So in the evening is also modifying the verb phrase, regularly is also modifying the verb phrase, but these two adverbs do not modify each other. Both of them are modifying verb phrase. Both of them add information, additional information about the verb phrase, but one adverb won't be modifying the other one in this case. Look at this. We are just making a sentence longer by bringing in more adverbs within a sentence to make this point. Now look at this. Raju eats pizza. Subject, verb, object, which is basically a verb phrase. Always one adverb. With his friends, another adverb. In the evening, another adverb. After classes, another adverb. So this is a prepositional phrase. With his friends. In the evening is another prepositional phrase. After classes is another prepositional phrase. All of them are adjoined to the verb phrase eats pizza. So this helps again extend your understanding. What is it? We have the basic sentence Raju eats pizza. These things are required for completion of a sentence because Raju is the subject, eats pizza is essential part of predicate, where eat is the verb and pizza is the object of that verb, required by the verb because eat is transitive verb. So we get subject and verb phrase. That much is canonical sentence. It has all required parts of a sentence. Now, all other things that you see in this big sentence, all four adverbs, always, with his friends, in the evening, after classes, are giving information about verb phrase. So, when they are related to the verb phrase, we can say they are adjoined to verb phrases and therefore they are called adjuncts. So everything that is adjoined to the verb phrase for giving additional information about the verb or the verb phrase are called adjuncts, are called adverbs. There are four of them. You can put them in any order you want depending upon the focus, depending upon what you want to say first. You can also say Raju eats pizza with his friends in the evening, after classes, always. You can put always in the beginning. You can reshuffle the order of these prepositional phrases. They may have some pragmatic or cosmetic changes in the meaning of the word, meaning of the sentence, but we can look at the various interpretations of the sentences after alternating these adverbs. But essentially, for understanding the structure of a sentence, for understanding what is required in a sentence and what other elements do in a sentence, when we pay attention to that, we get to understand the function of an adverb and the nature of adverb, its formation, very clearly. So, what are the things that we notice here? Something very important. Adverbs are structurally fluid in the sense that they are adjoined to the verb phrase, but they are not restricted in one place. They can appear in the beginning of a sentence, they can appear at the end of a sentence, and the internal organization, that is, if we have two or more than two, can also be shuffled around. That's what we mean by fluid structurally. Adverbs do not modify nouns. They do not describe a noun. They strictly describe a verb, a verb phrase within the predicate. Nominal modifiers are called adjectives. And there are few more things where I need your attention. So now if we discuss and we pay attention to certain things which come out of it, here are few things. So adverbs, adverb is a word or a now here I have specifically put these things in particular way, and I want to add few things right here on this slide so that it enriches your understanding. One can always get away by saying an adverb is a word that modifies or describes a verb. Even when they are a word, basically they are phrases. They modify or describe a verb, true, but more specifically, we can say they modify or describe a verb phrase. We say they modify adjectives too. Keep in mind, certain words do modify adjectives and then they become part of the adjectives. So it's open for discussion that after becoming part of the adjective, do they remain adverbial as well? So here is this. It modifies an adjective. There is a word which modifies an adjective in this case, like tall is an adjective, and we can say very tall. So very is definitely a modifying element. But after modifying this element, this becomes an adjective. This becomes part of an adjective. And I can say, Meena is a very tall girl. I can have a sentence, Meena is a very tall girl. Now my question is, very tall is an adjective to this girl now. Very is modifying this tall. And the whole thing is a noun phrase because it has a determiner right in front of it. Can this word very have adverbial function? This is something that I want to mention here. So it is possible we can say we have certain modifiers to adjectives also, but are they adverbial in nature? They are adverbial. They are modifier, not adverbials. So this is the description between modifying and describing. They do, sometimes we say they do modify another adverb. I have shown you the examples that it appears that they modify another adverb, but eventually they are all adjoined to the verb phrase and they modify verb phrase alone. So ended too quickly. Here the words like to is modifying quickly, which is clearly an adverb, but this is a modifier to the adverb, and once they come together they become one adverb to the verb phrase. They modify the whole sentence. Sure, they do. When we say, fortunately, I brought an umbrella. So this is a modifier. This is modifying this by virtue of being at the initial position in a sentence. It appears like it's modifying the whole sentence. True, but within the sentence, it is talking about bringing. So, at very canonically speaking about adverbs, we say words ending with ly are like adverbs, but a lot of adverbs do not end with them, like fast and others. And you have seen that all prepositional phrases which have got a preposition and a noun phrase in it are also adverbial in nature. And adverbs answers questions like how, when, where, why, not who and what. The only two questions adverbs do not answer are, are who and what. The elements of a sentence which answers the questions like who and what are not adverbial in nature. So that helps you determine what is not an adverb. So if you look at and look at examples, Raju did not play badly. This is an adverb because it ends with ly, but it is talking about what? It's talking about playing. It's talking about one specific quality of the act of playing. Meena is very tall. Just describe that. When we say very tall, this is predicative adjective which has a word modifying the adjective tall. The class finished too quickly. Quickly is an adverb, definitely, because it is talking about finishing, but the element like to is modifying this one. So we can say there are elements which modify adverbs also, but they are not adverbial in function because something becomes adverbial in nature and function only when they add they they get to be adjoined to the verb for saying something about verb. So together this phrase now is talking about finishing. Fortunately, Raju recorded Meena's dance. So here is an adverb, and it's talking about what? The whole sentence, but recording. So we can look at all kinds of sentences one more time. She sang loudly. What is loudly doing? It is modifying the verb singing, which indicates basically the manner of singing. So all ly type of adverbs is kind of manner adverbs. We left it here. Look at here. Here can be an adverb because it's modifying the whole verb phrase left it. We left it here, indicating the place. I worked yesterday. Yesterday is an adverb, time adverb. It is modifying me working. They often make mistakes. Look at this. Here, the adverb precedes the verb. It's possible. Usually, we don't see adverbs occurring in this fashion. It seems like adverb is inserting within subject and the verb. That's not really true. What's happening is adverb is at the initial position of the predicate. So often makes mistake often. We can also say they make mistakes often, or we can say often they make mistakes because it is structurally fluid in nature. He undoubtedly did it. So undoubtedly as an adverb is modifying the verb phrase did it, indicating certainty. So when we look at these things carefully, we understand the nature and function of adverb. In a way, look at this. She is often quiet. So here, often appears to be adding something to the adjective quiet. But I want to add another piece of information here, that this adjective is predicative in nature. It's the predicate. And the function of an adverb is to modify a predicate. That is verb of the predicate. In this one, there is no verb, but it is modifying predicative adjective. So it looks like its function as modifier of adjective, but please see, it is modifier of something that is predicative in nature. She cried very abruptly. Again, very certainly telling you something about the adverb abruptly, but when it comes to see something as an adverb, we see the whole thing as an adverb of crying. So very appears modifying, here is the key word that I want to use. It appears modifying another adverb, but and by adding some degree to the but what does this add degree to? Very abruptly, it adds degree to the verb crying. So we want to stop here by making a simple point. Adverbs have very clear function of modifying verb phrases by being adjoined to them. Verb phrases are connected with subjects in a sentence in a different way, and adverbs are connected with verb phrases adjoined to the verb phrases for additional information and descriptions. Keeping these 2-3 things in mind gives us a lot of clarity about elements that make a sentence. Without any ambiguity, we can say a lot about different parts of a sentence, different kinds of relationship in a sentence, because such capability to resolve such ambiguities and difficulties comes with clarity. And such a clarity is going to have impact on your learning in subconscious, which will show up. Please do some practice. Please take a look at some of the sentences the way I have described here. I have taken up bare sentences out of the context to show you bare structure and their function within a sentence. We look forward to more discussions on this from you. Thank you so much.